On their wedding day, her fiancé dumped her because her family was too poor 5 years. Later, he regretted it. Hello family, welcome back. Please do well to subscribe, and let's know where you are watching. The story from in the comment section. The morning felt like a promise. Sunlight slid through the thin curtains in the church dressing room and fell across the white dress hanging by the door. Emily Brooks stared at it and tried to breathe. Her mother, Linda, stood behind her, steady hands pinning a veil into place. Hold still, honey, Linda said. You look beautiful. Emily nodded. Her throat was tight. Does it look too simple? It looks like you. Linda smiled into the mirror. That's what matters. A knock came, a soft rap on the dressing room door. Emily's younger brother, Tom, pushed it, open with his shoulder, careful not to smear his tie on the doorframe. He held a small paper cup for the bride. What is it? Emily asked. Warm ginger ale, Tom said. For nerves. Emily took a sip. It tastes like childhood. Tom grinned. Better than champagne. Your sister will take the champagne later, Linda said. After she signs her new name. Emily looked at her reflection and tried on the name. Emily Hayes. It sounded smooth. Sounded like a door opening. Another knock. This time it was the wedding coordinator, brisk and efficient, tablet in hand. 15 minutes, she said. Groom's side is in place. Pastor is ready. The music will start as soon as you give me a thumbs up. Emily gave a thumbs up and the coordinator flashed one back and left. 15 minutes, Linda whispered. You're sure about your hair? We can add a pin. I have the little pearl one. It's perfect, Mom. Linda studied her daughter's face. You're shaking. I'm excited. Emily set down the paper cup. I keep thinking about freshman year, when David and I split one plate of spaghetti because the restaurant had a credit card minimum. You two have been through a lot, Linda said. Tom checked his watch. Want me to go find Dad? He's greeting people, Linda said. He wants to make sure everyone feels welcome. Emily knew what that meant. Her father, Gary, had been working nights at the warehouse for 2 years. He had saved hard to help with the small wedding. He was proud even with his frayed cuffs and shoes polished so much the leather turned dull. He was outside now, shaking hands, pretending the stain near the church steps wasn't there, making small talk with people who had never been to their house. Emily swallowed. Where's David? She asked, trying to sound casual. Tom shrugged. Last I saw, he was with his parents. They came in a black car. Big one. Of course they did, Linda said, not unkindly. They're excited too. Emily wanted to absorb that version of the truth. David's mother, Patricia Hayes, had always been polite to Emily, never cruel. But there was a kind of softness on her face that felt like snow, quiet and cold. Patricia enjoyed asking questions like, do your parents have plans for retirement? And is your brother in college yet? In a tone that said it was rude to ask, but she would ask anyway. David loved his parents. He had told Emily that 100 times. They sacrificed a lot, he'd say. My dad worked long hours. My mom skipped her own career to raise me. I respect that, Emily would answer, and she meant it. She respected sacrifice. She grew up on. Another tiny knock came at the door. This time the wedding coordinator whispered. 5 minutes. We need to line up. Emily nodded and reached for her bouquet. The flowers were simple white roses, some babies. Breath, a thin satin ribbon. Linda pressed a kiss to Emily's temple. Your dad will walk you down in 2, Linda said. I'll go take my seat. Tom gave a playful salute. I'll be right outside. They left. The room went quiet. Emily took one more breath. She thought about the vows. She thought about the apartment she and David had picked out the previous month. A one-bedroom near the park with a tiny balcony. They had gone to look at furniture touching tables. They could not yet afford, promising each other that they would build slowly. I don't need a fancy couch, Emily had said. I want a good life. David had squeezed her hand. We'll make one. The doorknob turned. Emily turned with a smile, expecting her father's face. It wasn't him. David stepped in and shut the door behind him. He wore a dark suit that fit his frame like a second skin. His hair was neat, his tie was straight, but his eyes flicked around the room and would not land on hers. "Hey," Emily said softly. "You're not supposed to see me yet." "I know." His voice was flat. Something inside her shifted. "Is everything okay?" He didn't answer right away. He reached for the back of the chair and pulled it out as if he might sit, then didn't. He placed both hands on the chair's back and gripped it. She watched his knuckles go pale. "David." Emily took a step closer. "Talk to me." He took a breath. "We can't do this." The words seemed to drop between them and lie still. Emily blinked. She felt for a second like she had misheard him or he had missaid it. "What?" she asked. She even smiled because this had to be a bad joke. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." He kept looking at the floor. "I can't marry you." The room tilted. The dress felt too tight. The veil brushed her cheek like a spiderweb. She tried. Again. "What happened? Did something happen? Are you sick? Did someone—" "My parents are right," he said, and now he looked at her. His eyes were distant, guarded. "This marriage isn't a good idea." "Because?" Her voice was small. "Because what?" "Because your family can't support us," he said. The words were clipped, as if he had rehearsed them. "Because we'll be under pressure. Because I'll be carrying everything. The down payment, the wedding debt, the future kids." "There is no wedding debt," Emily said. "We kept it small on purpose. And we don't need a down payment right now. We agreed to rent." "I agreed because I thought you'd come into some help," he said. "But your dad," he told my dad last night that things are tight. He's behind on some bills. Your mom's hours were cut at the store." Emily felt the air leave her body. "They've been tight for years," she said. "You know that. That's not new." "None of this is new. My parents said I'm setting myself up," he said. "They said I've worked too hard to get trapped." She heard the word and flinched. "Trapped." She tried to keep her voice from shaking. "Trapped? How?" "With me. With everything," he said. "With a wife who comes with obligations I can't take on. With in-laws who will need help and you'll ask me to help and then I'll resent it and then we'll be unhappy." "That's what they said." "And what do you say?" Emily asked. He pressed his lips together. "I think they're right." Emily's eyes stung. She blinked hard, but tears still gathered. "We've talked about all of this for years. We planned a life that fits what we have. We weren't going to pretend to be someone else. That was the point." David shrugged helplessly. "I thought love could make it easier. But last week when we met with the mortgage lender and they asked about family gifts and you said there wouldn't be any—" Started thinking. "And last night when my parents brought it up again it got clear. Can't do this." "You told me last week we were a team," she said. "You told me it was us against the world." "I said that because I wanted it to be true," he said. "But it's not. The world is heavy. I don't want to carry it." Emily took another step toward him, then stopped. She felt the fine lace on her wrist scratch her skin. "We don't have to carry the world," she said. "We just have to carry each other." He shook his head. "It's not enough." A sound outside the door, a shoe scuff, a quick inhale, made them both look. The door was thin. Voices in the hall buzzed like bees. Somewhere a violin was tuning. The wedding coordinator would be back any second. "David," Emily said quietly, "if you walk out it won't just be me you hurt. My parents are out there. My dad has been practicing his steps all week because he didn't want to trip over the runner. My mom has been sewing the hemming on this dress by hand every night after work. They gave up so much to make this day decent. You know that." He winced. "I'm sorry." "You can't just say sorry like it's an eraser," she said. "You can't write this off." His jaw tightened. "I have to think about my own future." I am your future, she said. The words were raw, too big in her mouth. We planned it. Together. He looked at her then, really looked, and for a flicker of a second she saw something like fear on his face, or shame, or both. He opened his mouth twice before words came out. I don't want to be poor, he said finally, and there it was, plain and ugly. I grew up watching people cut corners and pretend it was fine. I don't want that life. Emily's chest went cold. My family doesn't pretend, she said. We tell the truth. When we don't have it, we say it. That's not pretending. That's surviving. He looked away again. I can't do it, he said. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have come in here. I should have asked the pastor to tell you. But I owed you my face. Your face, Emily echoed. Where was your face when we picked out the invitations? When we tasted cake? When I told my mom you surprised me with the cheap earrings you could afford, and I cried because it was the thought, not the price. He flinched again. Don't make this harder. How could it be harder? She asked. Her voice rose and she lowered it again, as if speaking louder would draw blood. You're leaving me in a dress. He reached out like he might touch her arm, then pulled his hand back. I'll take care of the costs, he said. I'll reimburse your parents. Don't you dare, Emily said. The words snapped in the air. Don't you turn this into a transaction. My parents are not your debt. I am not your refund. Another sound at the door. This time it opened a crack. Gary Brooks's face appeared, eyes bright, with pride that blurred when he saw their faces. He pushed the door open wider, still smiling, then stopped. What's going on? He asked. David stepped back. Mr. Brooks, he swallowed. Gary, I'm calling it off. Gary blinked. For a moment he didn't understand. Then he did. The skin around his mouth went slack. He looked at his daughter, then at the man in the suit. What do you mean? Gary asked, even though he knew. I can't marry Emily, David said. I'm sorry. Gary looked at his daughter again. Emily stood very still. The bouquet hung at her side, the ribbon brushing the floor. Gary took a breath, held it, and let it out. He nodded once as if he were agreeing to lift something heavy. You could have decided that yesterday, Gary said quietly, before my wife stayed up hemming that dress, before we invited people, before my son took a day off he doesn't get paid for. I know, David said. I know. Gary looked at his shoes. He rubbed a thumb into a scuff that would not disappear. Get out. Then, he said, still quiet. If you're going to go, go now. David looked at Emily. If he expected her to stop him, she didn't. She just watched him, not blinking, as if she were memorizing his face so she would never forget what it looked like to see someone choose comfort over love. I'm sorry, he said again, uselessly, and turned for the door. He opened it and stepped into the hallway. The wedding coordinator was there, her smile fading, as she took in the scene. A bridesmaid who had been smoothing the aisle runner looked up, startled. Someone laughed in the distance, then hushed. David's father, Richard Hayes, stood near the sanctuary doors. He put a hand on his son's shoulder and guided him down the hall, with a practiced calm. Patricia followed, her mouth a tight line, her eyes avoiding everyone else's. Gary closed the door. The room was silent except for Emily's breathing. Came shallow, then deeper, then hitched. Her father took one step forward, stopped, and then crossed the space in 2 strides. He didn't ask if she was okay. He knew she wasn't. He wrapped his arms around her and held on. I'm sorry, Dad, Emily said, voice muffled in his jacket. Don't you be sorry, he said. Not for someone else's choice. But everybody's outside, she said. They're waiting. We'll tell them, he said. We'll take care of it. She pulled back. I can do it. No, Gary said. You don't need to carry that on top of everything else. The door opened again. Linda slipped in, her face pale. She had seen enough from the hallway to understand. One look at Emily's eyes and she pressed her hand to her chest. "Oh, baby," she whispered. Emily straightened. "Mom, I'm okay." "You don't have to be okay," Linda said. "I know," Emily said. "But I am." Tom's head appeared over Linda's shoulder. "Do I need to block the exit?" he asked, trying for humor and missing. "He's gone," Gary said. Tom's jaw flexed. "Good." The wedding coordinator stepped in, careful as if she were entering a hospital room. "We can ask guests to give you a few minutes," she said. "We can, there are protocols for this, but I hate that word. We can just be human." Linda nodded. "We'll be human." She looked at Emily. "Do you want to say anything?" "We can tell people privately. We can simply say there's been a change." Emily thought of the people in the pews. Neighbors, church ladies with kind eyes and quick tongues, old teachers, 2 classmates who had always liked David and would soon trade, whispers like candy. She thought of the little kids dressed up and swinging their legs, waiting to see a princess walk down the aisle. She took a breath. "I'll speak," she said. "I want to do it once and be done." Linda squeezed her hand. "We'll stand with you." "I know," Emily said. She set the bouquet on the chair. The ribbon slid and coiled on the floor like a question mark. She reached up and pulled the veil out of her hair, caught on a pin and tugged. Linda untangled it and folded it over her arm. Emily smoothed her dress. She looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. The face was the same, but something in the eyes had changed. Not broken. Not yet. Just altered. Tom cleared his throat. "I can also go make an announcement so you don't have to go up there." "It's okay," Emily said. "I want to see the room one last time." The coordinator nodded and slipped out to quiet the music. The violinist stopped. Murmurs swelled. A few guests stood to look down the aisle. Emily opened the dressing room door and stepped into the hallway with her family around her like a small, loyal army. They walked to the sanctuary. The doors were wide. The white runner was smooth. Flowers lined the pews in simple jars, tied with ribbon. The air smelled like lilies and floor polish. Emily stood at the back and waited until the whispers soft. Then she stepped forward. "Hi," she said, voice steady, carried farther than she expected. People turned. Some smiled in automatic reflex, then saw her face and the smiles faded. "I want to thank you for coming," she said. "I know you all came to see a wedding." Quiet laugh broke, then died. "There won't be one today," Emily said. "David has decided not to go forward." A wave moved through the room, rustling like wind in a field. Emily let it pass. "I won't tell you his reasons," she said. "They're his to share or keep. I will tell you mine. I still believe in love. I still believe in promises. I still believe in standing by people when it gets hard. Today isn't that day for me, but it will be again." She swallowed. Her father stood to her left, her mother to her right, her brother behind her like a guard. "If you'd like to stay, there's food in the hall. Please eat. We paid for it," she added, and a few people chuckled, grateful for the release. "If you'd rather go, I understand. Either way, thank you for being here." She paused. One more thing wanted out. Felt important. "And if anyone speaks to my parents today," she said, "be kind." She turned. Linda took her hand. Gary put his palm on her shoulder. They walked back down the aisle together, not to music, not to applause, just to the sound of people making space for them. As if parting for a small parade no one wanted to see but everyone respected anyway. Back in the hall, away from the eyes and the flowers, Emily leaned against the cool paint and closed her eyes. She heard the dull thud of her heart in her ears. She heard Tom's phone, buzzing and then go quiet. She heard a child ask a loud question and a mother shush it. She heard the church refrigerator hum. Linda touched her cheek. "Do you want to go home?" Emily shook her head. "I want to stay for a while," she said. "I don't want it to look like I ran." "We can stand with you," Gary said. I know, she said again. But I can stand. Tom shifted. I'll keep an eye out, he said. If anyone says something dumb, I'll walk them to the parking lot. Tom, Linda warned. Kidding, he said, not kidding at all. A familiar voice came from the other end of the hall. It was David's aunt, Carol, breathless and apologetic. Emily, sweet girl, she said. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Emily said. Carol shook her head. I told Patricia this was wrong. I told her not to push him. He's an idiot. Emily nodded because disagreeing would take too much energy. Thank you for trying, she said. Carol squeezed her hand and moved on. More people came. Some hugged, some cried, some spoke in low voices like they were in a library, as if volume itself could break her. Emily answered everything with polite words that sounded like she had rehearsed them. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you. We'll be okay. When she felt her voice wobble, she took a sip of water and started again. In the middle of the line of comforters, a whisper sliced through, too sharp to be accidental. Did you hear? A woman said to another. His mother found out the family couldn't afford a down payment. The other woman nodded. She told him love doesn't pay a mortgage. Emily kept her face calm. Her hands were steady now. Something inside her had solidified, not into anger, not yet, but into a kind of quiet steel. Tom heard it too. He took a step, but Emily touched his sleeve and shook her head. Not today, she said. He stepped back. An hour passed like that, slow and heavy. At last the hall emptied. The food sat on long tables, untouched on one end, demolished on the other by a handful of guests who had chosen to stay, and turned the awkward into normal. Someone stacked plates. Someone gathered forks. The wedding coordinator came by to ask a soft question about leftover flowers. Emily answered. When it was finally quiet, Gary picked up the bouquet from the chair in the dressing room. The ribbon dangled again. Want to keep it? He asked. Emily looked at the flowers. The petals looked older now. Put it in water, she said. Let it last one more day. They walked out of the church together. The afternoon light had shifted. The parking lot smelled like hot asphalt. Someone had tied a just married banner to the wrong car as a joke earlier. It hung limp now, the joke gone sour. At the curb, a black car idled. Inside, David sat next to his parents. He looked out the window as Emily came down the steps. Their eyes met through the glass. He raised his hand a fraction, a half wave that wasn't a wave at all. Patricia stared straight ahead. Richard spoke to the driver. Emily looked at David, then away. She reached for her father's arm and felt his steady strength. Under the worn suit sleeve, they walked to the old sedan that had carried their family through a decade of repairs. The door creaked when Gary opened it, like always. Emily got in, smoothed her dress so it wouldn't snag, and closed the door. She watched the black car pull away, tires whispering on the road. Turned the corner and disappeared. She exhaled. It was a long breath, a deep one. Then she said, in a voice no one argued with, tomorrow, I'm going to the city. Linda turned in her seat. For what? To start over, Emily said. Tom leaned forward from the back. You want company? Not yet, she said. But soon. Gary started the engine. We'll figure it out, he said. Emily nodded. Her voice was steady, even as her eyes burned. Yes, she said. We will. Outside, the world went on like it always did. Inside the car, something old ended and something new, small and stubborn, began. And somewhere across town, in a quiet room where money and fear had just won a battle, regret began to take shape, slow, sharp, and patient. If you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories, we build hope and give future to children and women abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing to hitting the subscribe button and turning on your notification bell. Also let us know in the comments where you are watching us from and how this story hit home for you. The city was louder than Emily remembered. Buses hissed at stops. Horns snapped in the distance. The air smelled like roasted peanuts from a street cart and exhaust from the morning traffic. Her suitcase rattled over the cracked sidewalk as she stepped out of the bus station, carrying all she owned in 2 bags and the dress she refused to leave behind. She didn't know why she brought the dress. It wasn't for memories, those were already burned into her. Maybe it was because she hated the thought of David's choice turning it into trash. It would hang in her closet until she decided what it meant. She found a small basement apartment through a cousin's friend. The walls were yellowed, the windows small, and the single bathroom had a faucet that dripped every 12 seconds. But it was hers. No one looked at her here like she was a scandal. That first week, she walked blocks in cheap flats until the blisters on her heels became calluses. She went from store to store, leaving her name and the same practice sentence. "Hi, I'm looking for work. I can start today." By the end of the week, she had 3 jobs. The first was at a diner. She worked the morning shift, taking orders from construction workers, truck drivers, and the occasional college student who didn't look up from their laptop. She learned to carry 3 plates at once without spilling coffee, to smile at regulars even when her feet ached. The second was at a copy shop in the afternoons. She stood behind the counter making flyers, scanning documents and watching people argue about the price of color prints. Sometimes she helped students print resumes. She remembered what that was like, wanting a chance so badly that even the paper felt like it mattered. The third job was at a furniture store 2 nights a week, cleaning up after closing. It was quiet work, wiping down polished tables and dusting display cabinets, while the city's nightlife hummed outside. She worked until her body hurt in places she didn't know could hurt. But the paychecks came in, small and steady. She sent part of each to her parents, no matter how much they told her to keep it. One rainy Thursday night, Emily called home while she heated a can of soup. "You sound tired," Linda said through the crackling line. "I'm fine," Emily lied. "How's Dad?" "He's still on nights. Tom's working part-time at the hardware store. He's saving for school." Emily stirred the soup. "Good. Her mother said carefully. "Have you heard from him?" Emily knew who she meant. "No, I don't expect to." Linda sighed. "Sometimes people change their minds." "Sometimes," Emily agreed. "But I don't want his mind. I want someone's heart. If it's not both, it's nothing." There was a long pause. Then her mother said, "That's my girl." By the end of the first year, Emily had saved enough to quit the diner and take a full-time job at the furniture store. It wasn't glamorous. She started in the stockroom, moving heavy boxes and learning which would warped in humidity and which polish left streaks. But the manager, a wiry man named Frank, noticed she remembered details. "You've got an eye," he said one day, watching her arrange a display. "You know how to make a room feel like someone lives there." Emily shrugged. "I like making spaces feel warm, like home." "That's sales material," Frank said. "Come up front tomorrow." Within months, she was helping customers pick pieces, explaining the difference between walnut and mahogany, guiding couples through arguments over dining chairs. She didn't just sell them furniture, she sold them a picture of their life. One Saturday, a woman came in looking for a coffee table. She was sharp-eyed, wearing a coat that looked expensive but not loud. "This one," Emily said, showing her a handcrafted oak table. "It's solid, no veneer. It'll last." The woman ran her hand over the smooth edge. "Who makes it?" "A small shop 2 hours north," Emily said. "They've been around for 40 years. The woman smiled faintly. "You know your stuff." "I learn fast," Emily said. 2 weeks later, the same woman returned, not for a table but to talk to Frank. Emily watched them from across the showroom. After a few minutes, Frank called her over. "This is Mrs. Turner," Frank said. "She runs a design firm. She wants to speak with you." Mrs. Turner didn't waste time. "I need someone who understands both product and people. Someone who listens." You do that? Interested. Emily blinked. In what? In working for me, Mrs. Turner said. Higher pay. Bigger challenges. Emily thought about the bills, about the drip in her bathroom faucet, about the bags under her. Yes, she said. I'm interested. The design firm was a different world. Clients had budgets bigger than her parents' mortgage. They wanted homes that looked like magazines, and Emily learned to give them that without losing the warmth that made rooms feel alive. She worked late, sometimes until midnight, drafting ideas and sourcing materials. She studied everything: fabric textures, color psychology, the way light hit a wall at different hours. She didn't just sell furniture anymore. She told stories through spaces. Mrs. Turner noticed. You're going places, she said one evening. Ever thought about starting your own line? Emily laughed. Me? No, that takes money. It takes vision first, Mrs. Turner said. Money follows that. By the end of the third year, Emily had both. She launched her own small business, Brooks & Company, specializing in handmade, sustainable home goods. She started with 3 local craftsmen, designing pieces that were simple but durable. Word spread. Her first feature in a home magazine brought orders from across the state. Her second feature brought them from across the country. She rented a proper apartment with tall windows and a balcony just big enough for 2 chairs. She brought her parents to the city for the first time, showing them the office with the sign on the door that had her name. Her father ran his fingers over the engraved letters. Emily Brooks, he read aloud, his voice steady. That's something. Her mother hugged her and whispered, You did this yourself. Emily smiled, but deep down she knew it wasn't just herself. It was every double shift, every late bus, every time she refused to give in to the voice that whispered she was only what David had left behind. One winter evening, she found herself walking past a jewelry store on her way home. The display was full of engagement rings, each lit like a star. She stopped, her breath fogging the glass. For a moment, she imagined a different life. A life where David hadn't walked out. A life where she had worn the dress for more than a photograph in a dark closet. Then she imagined that life 5 years in. She saw herself trying to hide grocery receipts so he wouldn't see the cost. She saw his eyes calculating every expense. She saw the quiet resentment, the way it would chip at love like a hammer on stone. She stepped away from the window. It wasn't that Emily had stopped believing in love. She just stopped believing it was enough on its own. Love without respect was pity. Love without trust was control. And love without loyalty was just a performance. She wanted the real thing. One Sunday, she took the bus to visit her parents. They had moved into a small house in a quieter neighborhood, one Emily had bought for them in cash. Her father was in the backyard, fixing a fence post. Her mother was in the kitchen making pie. Tom was there too, taller now, with calloused hands from his job at the mill. You're a big shot now, he teased as she came in. Should I bow? Bow and get pie, she said. They ate at the old wooden table her father had built decades ago, the one with the dent from when Tom dropped a hammer as a kid. Felt like safety. After dinner, her father sat back and said, You've done well. Emily shrugged. I worked hard. Gary shook his head. You worked smart. You kept going. Her mother reached over and took her hand. Do you ever think about, you know? Emily smiled faintly. Sometimes, but not like you think. I don't wish it happened differently. Just wish I'd known sooner. That night, as she lay in her childhood bedroom, Emily thought about the 5 years since the wedding that wasn't. She thought about the tears that had dried into something sharper, something that built instead of broke. She had been humiliated. She had been the girl left at the altar because her family didn't have money, but she had turned that into the woman who built her own. And somewhere, though she didn't know it yet, David Hayes was about to find out just how much that choice had cost him.